Chapter 6, Printmaking. Printmaking is a very interesting medium. It's one of my favorites. And the reason why I enjoy it is the fact that you can have multiplicity within this medium. Now, what does this mean? It means that you can take a base image, let's say a woodcut, for instance, and I'll explain what a woodcut is in a minute. But you can take a base image and you can take it and print it multiple times. You can make multiple copies off of your base image. So I've always found this to be a very smart way of approaching art because you can make a lot of it. You can make it cheaper and more affordable, right, for the public. It's just to me a very interesting way to approach art making. Now, when you're out and about, let's say at an art fair or maybe down at the art at the park or whatever, and you're looking around at art pieces and you're thinking, now is this a print or is it not? The best way to find out is to look at what we call the edition numbering. And I gave you a nice little close up here over here so you could kind of see it on the right. Now, when a printmaker decides to make a print, he usually decides on what we call a run or an edition. And he might decide on a number like 100 prints. That was my example I gave for you here. And so you'll see on the print at the bottom, just like you see in the image, the artist write down the number, right? The number print you're getting out of the edition over here, of course, here and here. And so, for instance, this print was number 2 printed out of an edition of 20, right? And over here you have the example of the print number 1 out of an edition of 100. So the artist can decide how many prints to make, and you will know which one you're getting. Now, you might say, well, why do I need to know? Many art dealers and art collectors think that getting the first print out of an edition is the best. It's better than getting number 100 out of 100. And one of their mentalities on this is that, when an artist is fresh, the first one's going to be better than the 100th, let's say. Now, whether that's true or false, who knows, right? But that's the thinking, that there's more value to one at the front end, usually of an edition, a run, than at the end. But again, this is interesting to think about, that printmaking really hinges on its multiplicity. And again, that's how you can figure out, looking at an object, if it's a print or if it's not. Now, what kind of type of printmaking exists? There's a bunch of different types of printmaking, even some types that I'm not going to talk about here. So if you're like, hey, what about this? There's only so many I can talk about, right? I'm going to talk about the classics, really, the classic approach. The first one, probably the most classic, is woodcut printing. It's been around since early Asian culture, then traveled its way to European culture, and it's just what it sounds like. It's cutting into a wood block. So artists will take a burin or a cutting instrument and they will cut, you'll notice, gouge, literally, lines right into the block. Literally, the negative space is cut away, leaving the positive areas to be printed. So, and again, you have the wood block here, and you'll have the finished print here, so you can see the two and kind of consider this. This is a type of printmaking that doesn't need a press. Literally, you can take a piece of paper, place it over the print, and rub, right? You have to ink it first, of course. You ink the block, right? And then you would rub the paper, and the print would transfer to it. So you don't need a press with this one. But this is woodcut print. It's the most traditional kind that you see. So again, think about the fact you can take this one wood block and print as many copies of this image as you want. It revolutionizes art making. Here's a good example of a woodcut. I told you Dürer was a master artist. You see him here again. But this is a good woodcut print, Dürer's The Four Horsemen. Or looking at an Asian example, as I mentioned, woodcut it comes from Asia, really. Yutagawa's The Women. Now, another type of printing is intaglio, right, or engraving. And that is literally the opposite of woodcut, where you take a metal plate and you're cutting lines into it. So it's the exact opposite method of wood cutting. And here you have Schoengaurer's piece of St. Anthony Tormented by Demons. Schoengaur was another great printmaker of the Renaissance time period. So this is sort of the reverse of woodcut. And of course, Durer also worked in engraving, and this is his famous Knight, Death, and the Devil. You also can look at lithography. This is Daumier. And lithography is very much more complicated than the first two in a lot of ways, where you're relying on a lot of chemical processes here. And you are applying grease and chemicals that help to repel the ink from the non-greased areas of the plate. So you're literally drawing on a greased stone or a greased plate and using the chemicals that are applied to repel the ink from the non-greased areas. The paper and the plate are run through the press together, so this is a press-dependent printing method. And again, Escher here is an example. Silkscreen, or what we also call screen printing or serigraphy. And the diagram here helps you look at the process where film positives are used and they're exposed and they harden. And then literally you're squeezing ink right through the areas, right, that the emulsion, right, has attached to, or I'm sorry, not attached to. So you're squeezing the ink through, right, and creating the print. Silkscreen was basically developed actually to print fabrics. So the fact that you still see it on t-shirts makes perfect sense, and other fabrics makes a lot of sense. But it also is used in a fine art application with someone like you see, like Barbara Kruger as well. So some of her works here, again, good examples of silkscreen or screen printing.